Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel on human design. Well, I begin this week with two announcements. The first one is that YouTube, in their wisdom, have decided that I no longer have the choice to not monetize my channel with mid-roll ads. They want to make money out of the channel, and they're not giving me the choice to turn that off. At least I believe that's what's going to happen automatically starting this week. I hope it doesn't, but just giving you the heads up. With long videos, the chances are there's going to be ads, and I'm sorry about it, and there's nothing I can do about it. Anyway, moving swiftly on, because we are using the platform and it is useful. Some weeks there are a few questions, and some weeks there's a truckload. Well, we got a truckload come in this week. And although it's crazy to attempt it, I'm going to attempt to answer quite a lot of them. So for those of you on this journey with me this week, we are going to go into all the different aspects of human design. When I say all, we're going to go into a lot of different aspects. So it's going to be quite a roller coaster. And as you'll see. So let us begin with the first question from Elizabeth. And this is her question. Would you post something on the melancholies, how to work with, understand, and transmute them? Thank you. Okay, well, the melancholies are the individual gates and individual channels within us. It's part of the individual circuitry. That melancholy is part of that. And I've done, I think, a 3-day course on this several times live. I will do a full one on film as soon as I can get round to it. So there's a lot to say, don't have time to say it, but I will do my best to answer that question. Individual gates are something that don't fit in. They don't want to be interfered with. They are different in every person. They are individual after all. And how to understand them by realizing that they come through you. They take you into a melancholic state, which I advise you not to try and jump out of straight away. My advice is to put on some music and allow that melancholy to settle and see what comes through you. Because what comes through you very often is a great deal of creativity and something really new. But also to know that if you have such gates and channels in your chart, as most do, some more than others, there will be a sadness in the life. It's a natural consequence of being an individual, of being unique in that aspect of you. And it's not something that can easily be shared, it can easily be seen. It is often seen by other individuals around you. But the main way of transmuting it is to allow yourself to be transmuted by the experience in the moment as you let go into it. That is the only way that I know. It will lead you into places you haven't been before, and something new arises out of you if you let go into it. If you resist it, with antidepressants and all kinds of other chemical additives, then it's just going to continue and cannot be resolved. It's something that comes through you. The muse comes through you. We are receptive. We're here to open to it if we can. And yes, it can be painful, but it does move on, and it moves from one extreme to the other. So that's what I have to say about it. There's a deep wealth of creative wonder in all the melancholy gates. So check out my course when I've done it, and I've got it up on film. Thank you for the question, Elizabeth. The next question refers to rave psychology and to the motivations. And this is from answers 1, 2, 3. This is the question. Here comes the question from your friend with 10 third lines in her body graph. I'd love to hear you share everything about motivation and its transference beyond the basics of 1 transfers to 4, 2 to 5, 3 to 6, and vice versa. How do you deal with transference? Well, obviously a huge question. There, answers 1, 2, 3. When I studied rave psychology, it was a 3-year course involving all the chains and everything else. It was really a deep, advanced side of the knowledge. So no, I can't tell you everything about it in this YouTube channel, but I can give you an example. I'll use myself as an example. I have the motivation of guilt. In other words, behind my first line in my personality, Sun, there is this motivation to want to help people, to feel guilty if I don't help them. The transference of guilt is hope. And when I was younger, you know, I would be writing letters. We used to write letters then a lot. It was really a good way to communicate. And I often use the phrase at the end of the letter, you know, I hope all goes well, or something like that. I used the transference in my languaging. And the danger in this particular aspect is that the fifth color is there to be practical. It is aligned to the fifth line. It is there to be able to help in a way that can benefit the person. And if I get lost in hope, then it leads to more, you know, I hope you'll be all right, but I'm not going to do anything for you. You know, I hope, you know, it's like a passivity that can come out of you where you don't get involved if it's correct for you to get involved. Having said that, color is something that transfers. So the neutrino hits the crystal. It is the base note that is sent when the crystal is hit. It goes into the crystal, it spirals up in the tone, and is then transferred to the line of the gate through color. And it's this movement that can transfer. And, you know, if you're an adult and you haven't been born up correctly, it's not easy to get rid of this. It's still lurking about. So in that sense, it's about us being correct. In that sense, it's about not getting lost in the hope, for me, but to understand that guilt as a motivation is not my authority. My authority is, do I respond? Number one, do I respond? If my response to help comes out, then I can do something about it. If I don't, if I just think about, well, I should do this or I could do that, you know, this is not, you know, nothing for me to get involved with unless there's a response. So inner authority is always primary. And too often people get lost in the motivation in trying to lead their lives through the mind. So please put it in perspective. And regarding you wanting to know all about it, I've put this human design app up, humandesignrave.com, if you want to get it. It's very cheap for the whole year. I think it's about $60 or something. So, although there's probably VAT on it, but anyway, it's not much. I haven't quite finished all the advanced descriptions because there's a lot of them. And, you know, I've had to sort out end of year accounts and everything that the HMRC and the government want me to do. So it's kind of got in the way, but I do intend to finish all of them this month. They will all be uploaded, not only the motivations, but the environment and many of the other things that will speak to the advanced side of the human design knowledge. So you will find more detail there soon. All right, thank you for the question. The next question comes from Hele, and it's about genetic continuity. And she's written a long letter about this, so I'm just going to use a brief part of it in my response. Here's what she says. I have a question about genetic continuity in human design charts that I would like to hear your take on, knowing that you've seen a lot of charts during your lifetime. I certainly have. A while ago, I discovered a pattern in the charts of my relatives and other people in my close environment that I find quite astonishing. It turns out that gate 5, line 4, the line of the hunter, which is a dormant gate in my own chart, is also present in the charts of my mother, my aunt, my sister-in-law, and her son, not blood related, but nevertheless people very present in my life. This is quite a crowd with the same gate and line. Some of them have the entire channel, the 515, some of them only gate 5, but all of them in a defined sacral center. I am the only projector, and therefore the only one who has gate 5 as a dormant gate in design Mercury. And she goes on to say how difficult that gate and line has been in the family in one way or another. I'm curious to know if such patterns are common to see in the charts of family members, or is it just a coincidence in my family? Well, this again is a big question, Helen, and I'm happy to say that I have gone into it in a previous video. In April 2023, I did a video entitled "Where Do We Come From?" or "Where Do You Come From?" So if you go back a couple of years in my YouTubes, you will find the YouTube film on that. But in your own case, to have the same gait and the same lines so many times is certainly intriguing. And although I haven't done a deep, in-depth look at all the connections to all the people that I've seen in my life, it certainly seems to me odd that you would have that particular gait and line so many times. It's really specific. And I also find it significant that you're the only one that has it as a dormant gait, which means you're not here to always act upon it. You know, it's something that you're filtering the sacral energy through. Let's have a look at it. Line 4, the hunter. Waiting as a guarantee of survival. In exaltation, the creative genius to transform the most passive experience into active achievement. The power to make the best of one's fixed rhythm. And in detriment, in the sun, the vanity of a personality so strong that unwilling to hide behind a blind threatens its very survival. The drive to deny one's own rhythm with predictable costs. So this is the gate that fixes the timing. It fixes the rhythm of life. And it's in the 4th line. And the 4th line is a kind of a nexus line. It's the way that I see it. But it's also a line of opportunity. So you make the best of your fixed rhythm and the timing, but if you insist upon it, you can blow the opportunity. You can blow it. You can be known as someone who's very difficult. You know, I try to get to see her and she keeps changing the time all the time, you know, and it can lead to a lot of misery, as it has done in your life. So please understand that all the qualities that we have and all the things that we have in our chart are either lived out correctly or not. And if they're lived out incorrectly, and someone is always making an issue of the timing or an issue of they can't do it then or whatever it may be, this is not an opportunity. They're getting in their own way. Their power to want to be in their time frame is there, but they need to make the best of their own fixed rhythm, not to insist upon it at all times in all cases. So you having it in as a dormant gate, you get to see its difficulty as it comes out in other people. You get to see them insisting on the time when it's actually they don't really want to do it. You can feel the energy, the life force. You're a projector. You know, it's for you to really understand this as the only projector that can maybe affect the whole family if you can really understand it and see it and point out where it gets in their way, if they invite you to do so, if they're open to it. That would be very good. So regarding the video that I've already done, yes, there is a genetic continuity and you can follow it through in your channels and your gates through your family. If you go back far enough, you'll see it's quite amazing. With a particular gate and line, I would say this is something to be resolved. And since you're asking the question, it's probably up to you to work it out, how to help them with that fixedness by showing them where it gets in the way. So I also think there are certain karmic aspects of one's life as we live through one body and another, through one life as another. And there comes times when resolution is possible. It may be one of those. Can't say for sure, but it's certainly intriguing. And thank you for the question. And check out that other video. Thank you. The next question is from Yvonne. And she asks, I'm a 5-2 generator with defined sacral, spleen, and G center with channels of 1034, 1057, and 3457. I have mostly occupied a single lifestyle and have found it at times lonely. What is my best match in another, and what are my gifts? Well, another massive question that's best answered in dialogue through a reading. However, we can say a few things. We can say that the 5-2 profile, you're being projected upon by others, they're projecting what's in you and what you'd be good at. They're projecting on you saving them. You walk around with a double projection screen, which is difficult. It tends to lead you to want to kind of just keep to yourself and keep away from people who are projecting all over you. And that's what happens. So I can understand that, you can be very selective about who you spend time with. And it's likely, there's a couple of people that you keep in touch with, as you live your life, a few, a couple, 2 or 3 that are really important to you. But, it's difficult with a lot of the others. So what are your gifts? I would have to see your chart. How do you deal with being a 5-2? It's not easy. You're here with a profile that is here to be a heretic and be a hermit, both going out there, being in the limelight, and then coming away and just putting on some comfortable clothes and forgetting all about it, closing the door, turning off the phone, and that's it. You're hugely individual. I mean, you're a complete individual. You're here to be self-motivated. You're here to find out what it is that you really love doing. You're here to have beauty in the life. You're here to make your decisions according to your response as it's being affected by the splenic awareness in the moment. So quick decisions, not overthinking things. And who would best suit you? Well, this depends on what's going on for you. In the old days, I would say, find someone who also has individual channels, because they'll really get you in a way that other circuitry may not get you. But if you find someone that is purely individual like yourself, then this in itself can be a difficulty, because 2 individuals together can be great together for a while, but you're still you, in it, and being in a partnership and them not wanting to do what you want to do, etc., can be difficult. So it's not about you choosing who would be good for you and looking for those channels in people. It's about finding them through your own response and through your own motivation. That's how you find them, and you're here to find very specific people. Your old enemies and your old allies are out there waiting for you. One person that you may not know in this life comes along and they make all the difference. And maybe you remember them, maybe you don't, but your allies are around you at the same time in this life as they've always been. It's for you to get yourself to that place where you will meet them. It's for you to pick up through your intuition, through the tingles that run through you, when a random person you suddenly sense could be very important to you. It'll come out in the tingles. It'll come out in the sacral response. So it's following your strategy, and authority will take you to them. But, you probably don't want a lot of people in your life because it's not going to suit you. It will get in the way. But a few more would be nice. So that's my answer to you. I hope it's helpful. And we're staying on profile a little bit longer with another question from our regular quiz, who is asking a question about the 4th line profiles. The lonely opportunist. Of the many four-line profiles I've seen, to be honest, more so the 4 6s than the 1 4s, I believe most I see don't have as many friends or as many deep connections as they truly wish. 2 separate female friends, a 1 4 and a 4 6, even went on a friend app, which really blew my mind. It made me sad to realize how lonely they could get, plus many other examples. I have also heard Ra talk about 4 6s going on the roof in friendships, ? Perhaps this may be a factor. And also understanding most 2 4s lean on the hermit energy, which can be alone, but also gets invited out, which would satisfy their social appetite. Care to share your experience or any unique wisdom for all the fours out there? Interesting question, Chris. And it is something that is what I've also seen. I've also seen 4/6s when they come off the roof to have less people, to want to be less social. After all, they've gone through their time of objectivity. You know, is it going to be worth their while to have a friendship with this person or that person? You know, there is this honing down as they come off the roof. So yeah, the fourth lines are here to be influential, and they're here to be friendly or mean, but they're often friendly initially. And so they do have these associations because of their friendliness. But also, does it really lead to a full friendship, a full and close connection? Often not. Often not. I mean, you know, lovers come from their friends, but, you know, a lot of the time there is this friendship aspect, and this friendship aspect is often fixed in the early years according to the first 7 years of their conditioning. So that also has an effect to consider. They can enjoy being social, and then they can also see the waste of time it can be sometimes. You know, if it's not an opportunity for them, then really what is the point? So I think that becomes more prevalent as they get older. It would be interesting to compare a young fourth line, let's say up until around 11, to someone in their mid-30s to someone in their mid-50s or 60s. It would be an interesting survey to do. I haven't done it, but I agree with you. That's also what I've seen. Maybe the fourth lines would like to make some comments on this one. I would appreciate that. Do you agree? Is that your experience as well? And another aspect to consider is as we go through the cycles, the Saturn cycle, the Uranus opposition, the Chiron cycle, then there is a costume over the fourth line. So that could be, you know, a 1-3 profile, for example, where friendship wouldn't be a major theme. So I would also include looking at the cycles when you're thinking of your friends and the particular examples, and just double check and see if that is the case. If a cycle brings in a fourth line, one should expect there to be more friends and more social activities and connection. But of course, that often doesn't happen. Anyway, that's all I've got to say at the moment. Thank you very much for that one. Thank you. And now we go off on another tangent with Kimmy, who asks about twins. How does one go about reading charts for twins or multiples? I have identical twin girls with matching charts, but they couldn't be more different. Thank you for the question. I am also a twin. I have a twin sister, so I understand about twins. And I want to do a whole course on it. It is quite multi-layered, and I don't have time to go into it, but I will just say to you, yes, they can be very different in a lot of cases. And what I've noticed is there is a polarity in twins, a polarity. I went into this in great detail unexpectedly when a client came up with threw down the charts of their twin sons who were reflectors, and they both had identical charts. And the way I was able to go into them and to pull out the polarities and describe them to the father was to actually, I had to go right down to the base level, because they were born 3 minutes apart. I mean, it was, you know, not an easy thing to work through when you suddenly presented with that. But I did do that, and that's what I found. With a lot of twins who are not born so close together, there will be probably a moon change, there may be line changes, things like that can happen. But it can also be the planetary influence that changes as well. And that does make a big difference. So there will be differences. If we keep going down to the base, we find them. And then you need to know about base orientation theory, which is complicated, in order to describe what that means. When I dealt with the reflectors, and he said also they were very different, what I came to the understanding was that the twins could operate in many different fields. You know, they could be good at certain things. They could both be good at certain things. They could both be interested in certain things, but they wanted to be different to their brother, or they wanted to be different to their sister. And so they choose the ones, if that one's going for that, I'm going to go for this. You know, okay, well, you're going for that. I'm not going to go for that. I want to be different. I'm going to go for this. And then the polarities come out. That's the way that I've seen it happen. And at the same time, there are also layers within the gates and lines which have qualities that one will bring out that the other one doesn't. For example, in terms of being good with color is something that I've noticed with those with the 8th gate or the 1st gate. And both twins would have that capacity, but they show it in very different ways. So that's all I can say to you. If they're born close together, you're going to need a professional reading, and the whole thing has to be taken apart and examined. But yes, the polarities will show themselves on the surface, and also some similarities will also be there. You know, when you say they couldn't be more different, I mean, there'll be some things that will be very similar as well. It's just they're not going to draw attention to them. In fact, it can be quite amusing when you see it come out, you know, with them both. So that will also happen. It's something to really observe, and I will do a full course on it and get that on film so that it's recorded and people can have that source information. Hasn't been done yet as a film. All right, thank you for the question. The next question is another tangent. We go into the dream world, and this is from Stacy. I would like to ask a question about dreaming. Through following my strategy and authority, I've found a hobby which I love. It gives me a great deal of satisfaction, so much so that I do this hobby every day. It is now a major part of my life, and some may say it has become a bit of an obsession. I have noticed, however, that despite its prevalence in my daily life, and even though I think about it often, I never seem to dream about it. I always remember a lot of my dreams, and they have certain themes, usually related to aspects of my waking life that I don't particularly enjoy. I have heard Ra talk about the dream world being there to distract you while you are being conditioned. Is it possible that the matrix does not allow me to dream about the things which are correct for me because it wants to condition me to live out aspects of my not self in the waking world? Please, could you explain a bit more about dreaming and why we dream in human design terms? Also, could you clarify what is conditioning us when we sleep and why it wants to condition us? Thank you. Well, Stacy, another huge question. And the dream world and the dreaming aspect of human design is another fascinating aspect, and it's complicated. Your specific question about why don't you dream about what you're obsessed by, it's the first time I've heard that, so thank you for that. The dream world is comprised of a persona, which is a watered down version of our personality. And it's also part of a dream landscape that is fixed in us while we're dreaming. And then we get the planetary aspects, the transits coming through, which will bring in the characters and perhaps some of the adventures that we go through will be conditioned by the planetary aspects. So that's briefly how human design would describe it. And yes, the dream world is another layer to keep us conditioned. And in pretty much every case I've looked at, you will find that the dreamscape And the dream chart will take you away from whatever your inner authority is. So yes, it is there to entrap us, to keep us within the Maya. This is what Ra said, and this is what I have also come to believe. That doesn't mean that there aren't sources of information that can come through us in our dreams through certain portal gates at certain times. But it is always distorted, and it's not there for us to, really fully comprehend it when we wake up. And it can easily get in our way, easily. If you look at your own dream chart, which of course you have, you'll see it for yourself. So there is that. It gives an emphasis on one aspect of you, which might not even be the full aspect that you've got. It might give you the whole channel that you don't have, with certain missing gates or gates that are missing in your waking rave coming in as an emphasis, which of course is going to put you out of kilter in the waking life. So yeah, the dream is, the dream world has to be navigated and understood as something that doesn't lead us to making decisions when we wake up. To your question of what is conditioning and why it's conditioning us, that's a bigger question. That's really opening up the mysteries into another layer, which I don't really want to go into and don't have the time to do so. All I can tell you is that when you operate correctly in your strategy and authority, there is a feeling of rightness about your actions. The resistance of the world gets less as a consequence of it. And your dreams didn't have anything to do with it. So, yeah, that's really all I can say. There is nothing in the program that wants human beings to wake up in their own awareness of where they are and what's going on and who they are. It's not helpful to this ancient program that is running its own course. It is Ra stealing the fire from the gods. It is a Prometheus information that you have here. And that's our challenge. And that's the journey. What's on the other side and what is going on in the other realms, then this is something, this is another story. I better stop here. This is another story. So yes, I agree. The dream world is both fascinating and can bring new information, but often it's distorted and it is a trap to pull you away from operating according to who you are by using your inner authority. Never forget that. Don't get carried away with the, the larger than life aspects of it. Don't let it intrude upon your own decision making. It's very important you don't. Thank you for the question. Okay, the next question is from Zet, and this is a question on the magnetic monopole and our inner authority. Quite a variety of questions, eh? Hi, Richard. I have a question about the relationship or communication between the magnetic monopole and the authority. I've been curious about this since taking LYD in 2021 and having recently completed PTL1. I haven't seen anything describing that there is a relationship or communication between them. The magnetic monopole is the driver, and our authority is there to guide us in making correct decisions. So when my self-projected authority gives me an affirmative about a choice and causes me to go in one direction rather than the other, is it not either in service of or in collaboration with the magnetic monopole? Where does the wisdom of the authority come from, if not from the magnetic monopole, which is described as drawing our life to us along a specific geometry determined by fractal lines connecting us to the totality? Okay, so when you think about all the inner authorities that exist, whether it's the sacral or the spleen or the emotional center or the will, there is some force there. There is some aspect that can be recognized by us. When it comes to the G center, this is the weakest of all because it's not a motor. and it's not an awareness, but it is a movement. It is a movement. Now, you've got the magnetic monopole in there, but it's not directly in communication with your inner authority. The magnetic monopole is the part of us that will put out whatever is coming through us. So our life force, our intelligence, the tone that's moving through the crystal and through us to express itself in the line and the gate is coming through the magnetic monopole. If you're acting incorrectly, if you're being incorrect, it will put out a dissonant field, which you do not want to obey. You know, if you're being correct, according to, will it make me happy going in this direction, and you recognize that from your sounding board, you know, this is a very different thing. So it's not that they're in communication with each other, despite the fact that the magnetic monopole is in the G center, which is why no one's ever talked about it. Yes, I think that's all I'm going to say on that one. I hope that was helpful. Thank you. And here's a question from Stephanie, who's been in human design for 3 years. This is her question. After learning about human design and reflecting on my body graph and my own designer for over 3 years, I finally feel ready to start experimenting with my sacral authority in my day-to-day life. Do you have any advice? I'm a 2-4 generator with the 2838 and the 14-2. My biggest worry is how my authority will clash with my job responsibilities, as I suspect I may get many negative responses from my sacral for work that I will inevitably have to do. As a 2-4 generator, you have power and you have awareness. You're here to be self-motivated. You're a pure individual. You're here to fight for your purpose, your individual purpose in life. And you're here to empower those into their life and to be empowered yourself in going your own way. You are a keeper of keys, but you don't know what the keys are. They come from you following your response. So yes, you've probably got good reason to suspect there may be a clash between your authority and your work, but what the hell are you doing work for if you don't enjoy the work? You're here to enjoy your work. And you say to me, well, I'm doing it for money, Richard. I got to survive, you know, it's a material world. And I go, yes, but where's the risk you're taking? You know, you're here to take risks with the channel of struggle. You're here to fight for your purpose. And so, yeah, there can be clashes, but it's worth it. If you get in alignment with the work that you really love, that is of purpose to you, more energy will come. If you are in alignment with your own energy, being of service to others in helping them and empowering them and taking us into a more beautiful world, that's a life worth living. So all I can say is when your mind is going, no, my sacral says this and they want me to do that and I don't want to do it, you know, you're in a trap at the moment, and it's about getting out of the trap and finding another way. You know, I can't go into the details with you without being in a reading to look and see what's going on and what other things that you have that may be helpful. All I can say is following one's strategy and authority can be uncomfortable in the beginning as you're beginning to break free, because as I often say to my students when they come into it, I go, well, one thing is for sure, when you're getting into human design, you're going to lose a lot of friends. You're going to make others, but you're going to leave the people behind you that want you to be that not self person that you're not. And that's the journey. And that's the risk, and that's the struggle, and you're well capable of handling it. That's what I have to say to you. And the final question of this week is from our regular Yalav. And they've written a long piece, but again, I'm going to abbreviate it for our purposes. As a background, your love is a single mum having a hard time. The world isn't what it used to be, and so many of us may simply die by many other reasons aside from the poison jab, unhealthy food, and malpractice in hospitals, nor the very life-restrictive technocracy. But because most people have truly lost it, most are humanoids devoured of compassion, if they aren't downright criminals, or just act as if they care with a homogenized smile upon their lips. But when push comes to shove, there is no help to get into a safe haven. After too many years of such a revealing experience, I'm tired of the agony, noticing that things aren't going to change for the better, which is why this life in itself doesn't make any sense to me. Why create designed people, as shown in the body graphs, while most aren't even given the chance to live it? Something is truly wrong with this world, including the program itself. Or would all literally work as it should by divine design? Don't you think too, Richard? Well, Yalav, we live in a not-self horror. This is how Ra described it. And most people aren't living themselves, and they're not taught to, and we're at an age where we haven't been educated with the truth in much. You know it, I know it. And you have a motivation of hope, designed to be hopeful, and you have no hope. So yeah, it's very grim. However, I don't look at things from the world point of view that much. I look upon things in my own sphere of influence, you know, who I spend time with, where I go, what I do, what I put my energy into. And mainly I put my energy into positive things because I enjoy my life better. And I find things that are, you know, simple things that I really enjoy. And they could be anything from cleaning up, gardening, going for a walk, you know, meeting friends, whatever it may be. I mean, looking into some obscure piece of information that really makes me ponder, watching a good movie, these, you know, all kinds of things one can do that are not negative, you know, that are enjoyable, having a good meal, you know, to be thankful for what we have. There is no point raging against the world, raging against the wind. It doesn't do any good. It just goes on and on raging. You know, in the end, one has to accept the way it is. And in accepting the way it is, the vibrational field changes. It gives the possibility for people to come in who really do care, who really have something to contribute to one's life. You know, few and far between though they may be, it really only takes one that can open a door to many others, to a direction that is more suited for you, to an invitation that feels correct, and you have the capacity to go down it, despite having a daughter, despite being in the restrictive commitments and life that you have at the moment. But you're speaking to me, you know, a struggler. And strugglers never give up. All I can tell you is I have been in times in my life where it seemed absolutely impossible. And I kind of, like you, I fought against it until I realized in the end it was down to me and that I had to take the risk, even though my life may not make it through. And in taking certain risks, I did live through them. I did get to the other side. And my life is very different now. I cannot say what that will be for you. You know, we cannot be, we're not soothsayers. We're not, I'm not here to give you some fiction. But I am here to say it isn't, the way it is now is not the way it will always be. And to hang on in there and to begin to focus on the more positive things, change the focus, find something that's really stimulating, which you are in human design, but also, you know, something that's really enjoyable, something that you can take in and feed to that body of yours as a mental projector, to come back into the body more in a way that is pleasurable, in a way that is enhancing the energy in your life, to find a way to do that. I've mentioned various things in the last video that can help. So that's really all I can say. It's not over till the fat lady sings. And this life can be an endurance at certain times, but that doesn't have to be the whole life. It need not be. You're not here to lose hope. And is there something wrong with the program? The program is the program. The pattern is the pattern. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's a bit repetitive. And I think it's been rather downgraded during the last couple of thousand years or so. And at least the way it's been lived out, the interventions that have taken place. But I find that fascinating. And there are ways to reverse things. I've been thinking of bringing out a website, richardbeaumont.com, where I will be listing a few of the things that I've found are really useful and helpful in reversing some of the negative effects that are happening in my life and in one's life in terms of health and information and things one can do about it. But I need time to do that, so I have to ask for your patience in that, and all I can tell you is I'm working on it. I'm aware of the horror of the not self. I do my best to bring human design to people, to help them work through that, to get into their own process. But it is a process. It does take time, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. That's all I can tell you. And I've been in some pretty dark places too. So I think I'd better stop now, because this is probably a very long video. I don't know exactly how long. We've covered 10 questions. If you've enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll be back again next week with something completely different. All right. Bye for now.